Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with great recent recordings of the classics. And today we're talking about the Schumann Symphonies, which represent a very, very interesting case. You know, the Schumann Symphonies are difficult works to put over in concert. I mean, to really, really put over fabulously well. And the reason often cited is because of their somewhat iffy orchestration. Not all of them have that problem. I mean, the Second Symphony is nicely scored, and there are wonderful horn parts in the Rhenish, and there are two versions of the Fourth, and that's sort of an issue. And the First, they're beautiful works, and they're full of imaginative touches of color. But for long stretches, they can sound somewhat monochrome and rather four-square. And the reason is because Schumann was himself a terrible conductor, and he revised these works to make them foolproof. And when you make them foolproof, you make them boring, sonically, timbrally boring. In other words, he doubles the woodwinds with the strings constantly throughout these works. Yes, occasionally there's like a little solo here or there, but especially in the tutti where the whole orchestra is playing, you tend to have this compacted, dense sound and inner lines that aren't terribly clear, with the result that the whole thing can sound kind of congested. And it's an issue, and conductors deal with it in different ways. Some conductors diddle the orchestration, and depending on how good they are at it, that could be quite effective, and there's nothing wrong with doing that to clarify Schumann's intentions. The other thing that you can do is simply balance the lines very, very carefully. And that requires something that we don't get today, which is a great deal of rehearsal. And a conductor and an orchestra that really, really know each other and that have worked together for many years, and an orchestral ensemble that knows how to listen and has experience with this conductor playing these works. It's all doable, but it takes work. And nowadays, when orchestras get one or two or three rehearsals, a conductor comes flying in from somewhere, that's a problem. It's a real problem. I mean, you're not going to get the time you need to deliver a great performance. They're not difficult works to play technically, except for some of the horn parts and things. But basically, they're kind of easy. They're like youth orchestra pieces from a technical point of view, because I know youth orchestras play them all the time. And I know some conductors who, in their bag of easy symphonies to prepare quickly that don't take a lot of work, they usually have Schumann's Fourth or something like that. I've seen that. And as a result of that, you can get okay performances rather easily, but wonderful performances are harder to come by. And so, and the second thing that really I think is an issue is that they've become something of the province of the period instrument movement, which is a mistake. I mean, it's not a mistake that they play them. It's a mistake in that, to the extent that anyone believes that using a smaller orchestra, a chamber orchestra, or period instrument-y things is going to help. It doesn't. I mean, when you double the sound with strings all the time, then you double the sound all the time. And if your strings sound like hell because they're scrappy and awful sounding, then you're going to have awful sounding doubling strings all the time. You're not going to have greater transparency. It doesn't work that way. I hate to tell you, because it depends on who's playing what simultaneously, not just weight of numbers. And it depends on the ability of the various instrumental soloists in the woodwind section to know when they need to lead to achieve the correct balance. Again, it's a function of having that corporate identity and ability to work with a conductor who's really in sympathy with the music. And I can't stress this often enough, because you hear this kind of PR BS. When John Elliott Gardner did the Schumann Symphonies, everyone said, "Oh, small orchestra, greater transparency." Well, I listened to those performances; they were clogged. Ugh. There was nothing transparent about them. People were just parroting the PR, or they were listening very intently for some sort of sign of a woodwind somewhere. Then they go, oh, that's the greater transparency. That doesn't even begin to address the issue in dealing with these symphonies, because you need a top-notch ensemble that really understands the music. And so just because you do it in a certain configuration, that's not going to give you better Schumann symphonies. It just isn't. Trust me when I tell you. So those are the issues at stake. And great performances of the Schumann symphonies are still pretty rare. And as a reference recording, everybody has, for a bazillion years, been trumpeting the virtues of Wolfgang Sawallisch with the Staatskapelle Dresden, and they are wonderful. And there have also been excellent cycles done by the likes of Dochnani and Muti and Schulte, and Zubin Mehta has done some very good Schumann. And, there are really quite a few, but they're by the older generation of conductors, the ones who either had the work ethic and understood what it takes to really put the music across. I mean, Bernstein, Sell, others like that. Levine did really great Schumann. But that generation is largely gone or on the way out. And I wonder if the new generation coming up really is going to have take the time and attention to present the music as lovingly as it needs to be done, because it just doesn't play itself. Well, so with that in mind, we have to find a great Schumann cycle that postdates the year 2000. There have been a couple. There's Barenboim's with the Staatskapelle Berlin, which was deleted as soon as it was released. And this one, too, which may be hard to find, David Zinman with the Tonhalle Orchestra of Zurich. Now, Zinman has, first of all, genuine affection for this music. I have no idea where it comes from. I have no idea where it comes from with anybody, but it comes. He's got it. He made a very, very good Schumann cycle with the Baltimore Symphony on Telarc, but it doesn't have the depth of characterization that this cycle has. There's more interest in the phrasing, in the accentuation, in the shaping of large paragraphs. The music is just that much more alive. In the Baltimore cycle on Telarc, he had the transparency, he had the balances, he got that right, but the performances were just a touch faceless. These are abundantly characterful all the way through. There isn't a dud in the lot. They're swift and exciting and beautifully played, and obviously the work of a conductor and an orchestra that have been getting along for some time and which know what they're doing, and they reflect a lot of thought and experience from all concerned. They're on the Arte Nova label. They may be tough to find now. I got these two. They were released separately, by the way, on Arte Nova as a separate cycle. These two CDs come from this sucker, the Great Symphonies box, which I have right here, that they released after Zinman was basically done with his tenure in Zurich. And it has, all the Beethoven symphonies, the Mahler symphonies, the Brahms symphonies, some Mozart thingies, all the Schubert symphonies, and Strauss tone poems, and Wagner stuff, and all kinds of things, sometimes that are not even symphonies. But, they reflect very well on Zinman's tenure in Zurich. That box is also long gone, I'm sure. But boy, does he do beautiful, beautiful Schumann. And so, yes, these are great Schumann symphonies for the new millennium. But I have my concerns going forward about whether the conditions that obtain today for most orchestral concerts and most conductors handling them are going to be conducive to giving us great Schumann. We can only wait and see. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.